Bison Media Zone on WDAY Extra.
And welcome, everybody, to the latest edition of the Bison Media Zone on WDAY Extra as we get set for the North Dakota State football opener for 2024, taking on the University of Colorado. Most of our Media Zone team is already left. We're leaving in just a few hours to get out there for a full 48 hours days of coverage to get you ready for the Bison and the Buffaloes matchup. We'll hear from Deion Sanders coming up in just a little bit about his thoughts about facing off against North Dakota State. We, of course, went there to Las Vegas to visit with him. That's probably the most extensive comments he's had about the Bison prior to this matchup coming up on Thursday night. We'll also get a look at the other games happening across the FCS with Valley teams matching up against the FBS. A big weekend for the Missouri Valley as they try to get on the board and keep this streak going. The Valley's had wins over FBS teams for 3 straight years, trying to make it 4 in a row. Southern Illinois trying to make it 3 years in a row with their victories over the FBS. But we'll keep our focus on North Dakota State and a Bison defense that brings back a bunch of returners up front. We know their defensive line brings back 10 guys. Linebacker room brings back all 3 starters from a year ago with Logan Kopp, Oscar Benson, and Nick Kubitz and Luke Works. Defensive secondary, some new guys there. You're going to see Anthony Shadimi Alfaro make his Bison debut at corner. At safety position, with the loss of Cole Wisniewski, Ryan Jones is going to make his second career start tomorrow night against a talented, uber-talented Colorado offense led by maybe the #1 pick in next year's NFL draft in Shedeur Sanders, and the guy could be right after him in Travis Hunter. The man trying to stop that Colorado offense is a guy that played a ton of football for the Bison. The new defensive coordinator at North Dakota State is Grant Olson. I visited with Gio yesterday to get his thoughts about this matchup, the challenges that Colorado presents, what will be a successful night for the Bison defense.
Here we are, Bison defensive coordinator Grant Olson. I'm going to date him right off the hop. The last time the Bison were in the state of Colorado, you were playing a game against Colorado State where the Rams scored the first play or third play of the game, and you guys played pretty well defensively. Take me back. What do you remember about that game against CSU?
I remember it being pretty darn hot beforehand. Yep. I remember that being the case, and I remember landing. It's funny, like, I think one of the things you don't remember is, like, when you land at Denver International Airport, you're a long way from the mountains. So I remember, like, where are the mountains? So anyway, those are 2 fun memories. But overall, I do remember the touchdown. Then all of a sudden, we started playing really well. Unfortunately, Colton got injured. Yeah. The safety was a great memory.
Huge play.
Just making a huge play overall defensively. So those would be some of the memories. But overall, I do remember just having a feeling after a couple plays of, like, wow, I think we're better than these guys. I think we're stronger and faster, and we know what we're doing, and we can really have a great day defensively and as a team, which we did.
You were 4-0 in FBS games, so there's a little, marko as well. But tell me, how do you impart that wisdom on, especially younger guys that are going into this environment for the first time? Yeah,
absolutely. Well, the first thing to always remember is they're human beings just like us, and they're going to make some great plays, but they're also going to miss some plays, just like every team does in every game. So having a belief of, man, they got 11 guys, we got 11 guys, and if our defense plays hard, plays fast, and plays together, we can hang with anybody in the country. So I think that's one of the biggest things that we got to make sure we all understand, and we also got to make sure that we understand, like, they are a good football team. They're going to have some success against us, and we need to stay positive. We need to not get rattled and stay in the moment, and if we can do that, we'll be able to weather some of their good plays that they will have.
I know you're going to give me the kitchen sink, so tell me the defensive game plan of Shedeur Sanders. Coach Polisic told in his press conference Monday he's the best player that the Bison have ever faced. That's your job now to try and stop him.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, anytime you go against a great player, you can't just do one thing all game long. You need to run different blitzes. You need to run different coverages. You need to throw different people at him. We got to do everything we can to keep him on his toes. We're not just going to align in one front and one coverage all game long. That's just not going to work. And it never does against great players.
Yeah.
How do people get after or try to go after a Patrick Mahomes or a Tom Brady? Like, well, number one, they got to win their one-on-one matchups,
right.
And 2, they got to try to confuse the guy. So anyway, so that's going to be the overall gist of the game plan. But in the same breath, we're going to run our bread and butter calls. We're going to run our bread and butter defense, and we're going to make sure that we're playing fast. A call that every 11 or all 11 on the field know what they're doing and play extremely fast, confident, and aggressive is always a good call for the Bison. My job is to put our defense in position that they can go out and make plays, fly around, and have a lot of fun, and that's the overall goal.
Is he more dangerous in the pocket or when he's making plays evading when, you know, everything goes to hell in a handbasket?
You know, that's a double-edged sort of a question right there, because he's really good at both. So I don't know if I can pick one on that. I think overall, I think probably some of the things that might keep you up a little bit at night as a defense coordinator, certainly just the ability to extend plays naturally. But I'm not going to sit there and say I'm excited about him throwing 50 passes a game either from the pocket. He's good at both.
Seeing Travis Hunter out there as a unique player. I mean, I can remember Deion Sanders as a player. He's the last one basically to do both. What makes him so dangerous that you got to mark him as a wide receiver when he's playing offense?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think number one is just his speed, and particularly I think his long speed or his speed down the field. You know, you'll see people that are staying with him somewhat early on in the route, and then as the route develops, all of a sudden that separation gets created where the explosive plays come. So anyway, we need to make sure that sometimes we're going to double cover him, sometimes we're going to play him in some zone coverage. We're going to throw the kitchen sink at them as well to make sure that they're not getting the same picture a whole lot. And yeah, we'll hopefully that'll confuse them. But at the end of the day, I'll always come back to, listen, if we play Bison football and we play really physical and we play together, we'll have an opportunity.
How excited are you for your first game as defensive coordinator on the sideline? And this is the challenge you have for game one.
Yeah. Oh, shoot. What an opportunity. Again, it's a great team. It's a great environment. A lot of Bison fans are going to be there. You know, we're going to have, it's going to be loud when they're, I think, on offense a little bit. There might be some moments where our fans really make a difference in this game. I wouldn't be surprised. But overall, I'm excited to watch our players go out and just go play. It's going to be a lot of fun. You know, I'll be the first to admit I'm going to rely on all the other coaches. You know, every defense coordinator at NDSU, it's never a one-man show. It's always, what are we doing as a team? What are we doing as a group? You know, Coach Gazer, every game, he's always got a good idea about a pass rush or a stunt or something we should be doing. So we're going to continue to have a collaborative effort and work as a staff and play as a team.
I know I talked to you about this on Media Day, about your linebacker room, that you feel like your twos could start anywhere else. Tell me about that, and we see some rotation in the game on Thursday night.
Yeah, absolutely. You're definitely going to see some rotation. You're going to see different packages for different guys as well. Just that way, guys have an opportunity to find a role and own a role. You know, guys that are really good at pass rush, you'll see some different people in on different situations. Goal line, red zone, third and long, third and short, etc. So I'm excited for those guys to get their opportunities. I really am. Overall, you know, we have got a really deep room, like I've already told you. I'm excited. Partly just the fact that we got a lot of depth.
Yeah.
I think the altitude always plays a factor when you go to a game like this when you're not from there. So the ability to almost do a hockey line change and bring in 3 to, you know, or maybe an entire new front 7, 4 new D linemen and 3 new linebackers, and they go play their tail off for 5 plays and we go do it again. I feel really confident in doing that because of the depth we have.
You are a great hockey mind, so I will trust you on that.
Yes.
You haven't had Cole Wisniewski through spring ball or fall camp. How much did that accelerate for Ryan Jones, some other Darius Givens, Jalen Crumby, the other safeties out there to get more reps with Cole being out? Well,
absolutely. Well, once Cole went out, we planned on not having him. You know, it's one of those you hope for the best and plan for the worst. So we started planning for the worst right away. Ryan got a ton of extra reps. The fact that Sam's a senior and doesn't need as much gave Darius a bunch of extra reps, and those things have really accelerated the growth and improvement of those young men. They're playing at a really high level. I plan on them making a ton of plays for us this year. They're good and they know what they're doing, so it'll be fun to see.
I always ask, give me one name, young guy. Give me one. It was Logan Kopp a couple years ago. You were dead on that. So give me another one that we don't know that we're going to know maybe by October, November.
Oh, man, yeah, great question. It's hard to pick just one just because I feel like we've definitely got a good number of young guys. You know, I'll maybe give you at least a couple, but I'll start with up front. I think Keenan Wilson's going to be a really dominant player. If he was 2 inches taller, my personal opinion, I think he's in the Big Ten. I just feel that way, just with his explosiveness and his power. But he brings a different dynamic that we don't have. You know, we got so many tall guys inside. To have one guy that can really get under some offensive linemen's pads and really knock them back, I think is going to give us a little bit different element up front. So I'm really excited about him. And then, you know, I'll just certainly say that I think Nathaniel Staling is the best third-string Mike linebacker in the country. That's non-debatable. It just really isn't to me. So I'm looking forward to watching him run down on kickoff and block on the kickoff return. And there might be a package or two you see him in on defense.
Okay. I'll leave you with this because I mentioned Shedeur Sanders. I went through some of the guys you played. Tyler Lockett was playing in the NFL. He's pretty darn good. The Breitenstein kid, I think you still have his number imprinted on your chest when you tackled him from Wofford that many times.
Yes.
A couple guys from Minnesota. Who comes to your mind? Like, this was the best guy I played against.
Oh, that's a great question.
Shakir Bell's probably on that list there.
Shakir Bell would be up there. You know, Terrence West at Towson was a heck of a player. He was a heck of a running back. Man, I'm trying to think. those guys, you know, it's easy to remember the skill guys, maybe.
Yeah, right.
Particularly, man, I remember the one year that Illinois State had some really good offensive linemen. Their tight end played in the NFL for a fair bit. Part of me, I know I'm probably a little bit biased. Sometimes I'd probably say some of the best players I had a chance to go against was probably actually in practice, believe it or not. You know, it's hard not to mention those guys either. But yeah, no, we've definitely gone against other good players. And I think one of the things that I've tried to instill in our current team is, guys, it's no different than Bison football in the past. We're going to respect every one of our opponents, but we're not going to fear anybody. We're going to go in and we're going to go play our tail off, and we're going to have confidence in our own ability, and we're certainly going to continue to respect all of our opponents. So we've gone against great players, and I think that leads our older players especially to have confidence going into this game.
There's our conversation with Bison defensive coordinator Grant Olson, who's going to be getting thrown into the fire. Now remember, he and Nick Gazer, his co-defensive coordinator, will be calling plays in the restructuring of the Bison coaching staff with Tim Polasek taking over. The defense is where you see a majority of the changes. You mentioned Devin Kleiman now, the new safeties coach. Will Johnson making his debut as a position coach as well at the cornerback spot. That is a lot of change for a group that's going to be facing probably the best talent they faced on offense maybe ever in the history of Division I football at North Dakota State. And knowing the fact that Cole Wisniewski is not playing this game, mentioned Ryan Jones, who made his first career start a year ago against Western Illinois, now will make start number 2. Shadimi Alfaro, the transfer from Cornell, going to make his debut for the Bison tomorrow at cornerback, guy that came in and won that job with Jaquise Alexander trying to fight for it. Najee Nelson was in the mix. He's been hurt. So there's 2 transfers at corner for NDSU, because you have Marcus Shepard on the other side from Bowling Green and Shadimi Alfaro from Cornell. Something to watch there on the defensive side. We've talked so much about offense and looking for playmakers. The Bison feel like they're pretty set defensively. And you heard Olson mention about Nathaniel Staling, the young man from Brainerd, Minnesota, who got a little bit of run last year, played a little bit of special teams. He and Darius Givens seem to me are the 2 potential breakout guys for the Bison defense in 2024. Something to watch. Both Minnesota guys, both played in the Minnesota All-Star game. Part of that huge class that was down there in 2022 has a chance to maybe be special here for the Bison in 2024. We'll take a break here on the Bison Media Zone. We come back, you'll hear from Deion Sanders, prime time himself, about the matchup with North Dakota State and a look back at NDSU's previous matchups against FBS teams. We'll get you ready for the Bison and the Buffs tomorrow night. Back on the BMZ right after this. Welcome back, everybody, on the Bison Media Zone. A few minutes left here before we sign off for this week. Don't forget, we got a huge live day of coverage in Boulder tomorrow. Bison Pregame Live will be with you exclusively on WDAY Plus and Inforum.com. We're on from 3 to 4 tomorrow. Leading you up, of course, kickoff is just after 7 o'clock on ESPN. Our crew, we've got some live guests coming by. It's going to be a fun hour to get you ready, not just in the Bison game. We'll talk some other FCS things as well in anticipation of the season opener. So join us tomorrow from 3 to 4 to get you ready for the Bison and Colorado. Now, NDSU has an FBS game this year. The next one is not until 2028 when North Dakota State will play at the University of Oregon. This will mark the 14th all-time matchup for NDSU against an FBS school. Most recent one came 2 years ago when the Bison were at Arizona and lost that game. NDSU takes a 9-4 mark all-time into these FBS games. They had their 6-game win streak snapped in this one against now Big 12 member Arizona. They, along with Arizona State, Colorado, and Utah, joined the Big 12 conference officially on July 1. This is still a game that Bison fans, and I think the Bison personally think they should have won. Jaden DeLora, the quarterback there from Arizona, who was mobile. He's not nearly as talented as what Shadir Sanders brings to the table. Was tough for NDSU to stop. The Bison got a 4th down stop. They forced a turnover early in this game, but a critical turnover in the red zone from Cam Miller cost the Bison that football game. Hunter Lipke had 3 touchdowns at his coming out party to the country after he had the 3 touchdowns of the national championship game against Montana State that January prior, but Arizona ended up winning the game 31-28. Now it's on to Colorado. And all the talk of obviously the quarterback, the wide receiver, it begins and ends with the head football coach and Deion Sanders, who's in his 2nd year and guiding the Buffaloes. Colorado went 4-8 a season ago. They're picked 11th in the preseason poll in 2024 in the Big 12. They added, as you see on the graphic, 41 players through the transfer portal this season. They had 3 of the highest ranked and rated games on television a season ago. They have NFL stars on the sidelines now helping out. Warren Sapp, Pro Football Hall of Famer, is on Deion Sanders' staff. Pat Shurmur, former Vikings offensive coordinator, is now calling the plays for Deion on the OC. They have a new defensive coordinator as well. He totally shook up his staff along with his team to try to find the right mix. He was asked on Saturday about matching up with North Dakota State. This is what he had to say about playing the Bison.
Who we are encourages them. You know, everybody knows, everybody want to beat us, you know, and we want to beat everybody. So that encourages them tremendously. They know they're on national television. They know the world is watching. I think we had maybe five scouts out there today, scouts out there every day watching practices. They see that kind of stuff. So regardless of who you place on the roster, not the roster, the schedule, these guys want it. They want to go out there and dominate.
Not too much there on the Bison for that matchup. And knowing full well, ESPN moved this game to national television because of Deion Sanders. I don't think North Dakota State's reputation hurt in that aspect to get one of the prime slots of the college football schedule, 7 o'clock tomorrow night on ESPN. It's a perfect segue. As we mentioned, there's some other FCS, FBS games to keep your attention on this week, specifically in the Missouri Valley Football Conference. Tomorrow night, besides the Bison and Colorado, Murray State begins its second year in this conference. They'll take on a Missouri team that's ranked 11th out of the SEC. High expectations for the Tigers this year. That's one of the two Valley FBS games. And then a bunch on Saturday to keep your eyes peeled on. Clearly, South Dakota State's matchup with Oklahoma State will garner plenty of attention, considering the Bison play on Thursday. I have a feeling a lot of eyeballs will be on that one against the Cowboys. 1 o'clock, that game is on Saturday on ESPN+. The University of North Dakota takes on Iowa State. That game is at 2:30 on Saturday on Fox Sports 1. Iowa State is a solid 28-point favorite against the Fighting Hawks, who are going to debut a new starting quarterback in that game. 11 a.m. on Saturday, Illinois State takes on Iowa. The Hawkeyes are a 3-touchdown favorite over the Redbirds, who I think are poised for big things coming up in 2024. So we'll keep an eye on that. And I mentioned that game at night, Southern Illinois against BYU is one to keep an eye on. The Salukis have won their last 2 FBS matchups. In fact, they've won 3 of the last 5 years against an FBS team. So SIU's got a good track record going. They have a new quarterback, though, as do much of the Missouri Valley. And you see the other games this weekend. Northern Iowa opens up with Valpo. Aiden Dunn will be the starting quarterback for the Panthers. Mo State's final year of FCS football opens against one of the favorites to potentially win this year, Montana. The Grizz will play 2 Missouri Valley teams to start as they'll go to UND next week. A reminder, Bison Game Day is with you tomorrow night. We'll hit the air at 6:30 on WDAY. And myself, Jeff Kolpak, Sam Getzinger, and Kyle Emanuel get you ready for NDSU and Colorado live on WDAY with the game to follow at 7 on ESPN. We can't wait for that. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. We'll see you all in Boulder and back on the Bison Media Zone here next Wednesday.